Welcome to What in the World, a project initiated by Hungry for Life International. Today's podcast is titled Funny Stories from the Field, and Jess will be interviewing Chad Martz. So grab your headphones, sit back, relax, and listen as they talk about funny stories from the field.
Okay, another Monday and another podcast on running a global nonprofit. This week, we are painting a bit of a different picture for you, our listeners, and typically, this would not be good practice. This episode would not be good practice to show your weaknesses as an organization. But Hungry for Life prides themselves on transparency. So here we are. And we know that a good laugh is good medicine. So our topic this week is funny stories from the field. And here to talk about that is Chad Martz, our Director of Director of Operations.
Yeah, so for 16 years, I was Director of International
That's right.
Operations, and this last year, the 17th year, has been Director of Operations.
That's right. Mm-hmm. So sorry for my confusion
That's
there.
Okay.
Chad, tell us quickly how long you've been at Hungry for Life and what your role is, which we just went over, and how many trips have you been on?
Yeah, so it's been 17 and a half years, and it's been 56 trips with Hungry for Life specifically.
56 is a lot.
Yes.
Question, have you ever filled out a passport before it's been expired?
Have I filled out a passport before it was expired?
All the stamps?
Yes.
You have?
Yeah, even those, quite a while ago, you could order the extra pages in the passport, and that one, filled up before, and I had to get a new one.
Well, 56 is a lot.
Yes.
Not many people can say that. It's a lot of trips for everything to have gone perfectly.
Yeah.
So Chad is a wealth of what am I trying to say? You have a plethora of stories to tell. So I've asked him to tell a couple of HFL's finest moments on field. And I want to preface this with saying, no, we are not perfect at what we do. And yes, we do learn from our mistakes. So, just to get it rolling here, Chad, because we all like a good laugh at ourselves. What's a funny story that has happened to you on a trip?
Yeah, funny story. I mean, I've got so many of them, unfortunately, but at that time they weren't funny, but I think we can laugh at them now for the most part. But a funny one of me personally was one of the trips that we were going to be taking to Laos. And I had packed my things, and we had a new project manager that came on board with Hungry for Life, and this was going to be his first trip. It was an assessment trip. And along with it, we were taking Heidi Blundell to potentially lead teams in the future, so to get her familiarized with the field. So it was a red-eye flight, and packed up my things and met Heidi and carpooled in, with her, and arrived at the Vancouver airport. And we were waiting for the arrival of the new project manager. This was his first trip, and only with us for a few weeks, and getting him prepared. And we kept waiting and realized that he was a little bit late. So we started to call him, and no one was picking up the phone. So we decided, okay, you know what, we might as well start heading towards the airport. And I just had this terrible feeling in my stomach that I did not check my passport, but of course my passport's always in my computer bag. Went into the vehicle, and there was no passport. So not only did we not have the project manager, but we also I did not have my passport. So what do I do? Who do I call? At this time, Mary was, overseas, so I couldn't call her.
Mary is your wife?
Mary's my wife, who's overseas. So with all those trips, the 56 trips, she's been on quite a few herself. So we kind of sometimes pass each other in the night. So she wasn't home to get it. So who in the world do I call? Do I call like my mom, my brothers? No, I call my grandparents at midnight and ask them to race over to my house and to drive as fast as they can to the airport, so I can hopefully get it in time to be able to make our flight to Laos. But poor Heidi is there, just thinking, okay, there's no Andrew, there's no myself. And she's going to be heading to this, communist country completely on her own. So my grandparents, bless their hearts, went in, got my passport, made it just in time for me to check in and make that flight. As for Andrew and what happened with him, he shut off his phone. He thought it was actually 2 p.m., not 2 a.m.
Honest mistake.
It's an honest mistake. It's totally an honest mistake. And the reason why he's like, because he hadn't done a huge amount of travel, and he didn't realize that planes flew at 2 a.m. He was just like, how can planes be flying at 2 a.m. at that godforsaken hour? That's why he always thought it was 2 p.m.
Did you question hiring him at this point?
Well, we were already a little bit too far down the road in that.
Andrew, we love you.
We do love Andrew, and it's an interesting one because he ended up transitioning years later from HFL to becoming a missionary in that very country that we went to assess. So yes, that was a big mistake, but a heart-pounding one.
Oh boy. Well, there's one lesson.
Yes.
Check for passports.
Always check for your passport.
Chad, you should have known.
It's true.
You told me another good one recently.
Yeah.
About this time your wife was not overseas. She was home to bail you out.
Yeah, she was.
You want to tell that story?
She was home to bail me out. Unfortunately, it's another passport story, and again, this happened a little while ago, and I don't do this anymore. But because I made the mistake the first time, and before I left, I checked to make sure that my passport was in my bag, and we were heading. I was usually my wife drives me to the airport, but she actually had pneumonia at that time, so she was in bed not feeling well. So I had one of my brothers drive me to Vancouver. This trip was a pretty it was a pretty interesting one because the team that I was going to be leading had originally been scheduled to go to Ethiopia. However, that did not work out for a variety of different reasons, and we needed to transition them to a similar type of like school project and a country that was nearby. So we had to do a quick shift in where they're actually going and setting up things logistically for the team to go to Kenya. But they had never been there. They had never met this field partner. So it's not like somebody on the team could necessarily take and walk the team through all the logistics. So anyways, arriving to the airport, I'm feeling fine. It's good. Again,
Got your passport?
Got your passport. Red-eye flight going from Vancouver to Toronto. Yeah. And I go to do the self check-in, open it up, and it's my daughter's passport.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So I don't know if I'm a pretty calm guy in this way and things will work out type thing, but this one I've never felt that type of stress or panic before because this is simply on me and all these people from Alberta who are going to be having a connecting flight in Toronto. They're not even meeting me in Vancouver. We're going to have no team leader to take them directly from Toronto to Ethiopia to Kenya. So
did your stomach just sink?
I don't even know if sinking is the right feeling. It did a whole bunch of different things that I can't even put into words. So I'm trying to think how do we go about doing this? How do I make it? If my brother drives back to get my passport, there's no way for me to get it in time. So I phone my wife and I said, Mary, I'm so sorry. I know you're sick in bed and you've got the chills and you're not feeling good. You have to get here right now with my passport. I might not even be able to make it. You have to get here. But my brother took our one vehicle and she had her other vehicle, which is a good commuter vehicle for about 15 kilometers to and from our work, but not necessarily to drive quickly into Vancouver. So she just quickly jumped right out of bed, PJs and all, grabbed my passport because what had happened is I have my passport into one specific spot and that's where I always keep it, but for whatever reason my daughter ended up in that exact same spot and that's why I grabbed it without even looking.
Right.
So she grabbed it, started to take off and realized that maybe our car's not going to make it to Vancouver and just drove in and once again went to my grandparents and said, listen, I have to get to the airport right away. And grandma's like, Calvin, you got to get to the airport. So off they went. And so they took his more reliable vehicle. But now the problem is for an international flight, you cannot check your luggage through on an international flight if you do not have your passport. Okay. So without being able to check my luggage, I can't do anything. So there was a connection in Toronto, but I can send my luggage to Toronto if I have my driver's license. So I decided, okay, what I'll do is I'll send my luggage to Toronto, and then at least I can wait at the security until, my wife and grandpa arrived with the passport. So that whole time, that's the longest hour that I've had. And usually it takes like an hour and 15 to an hour and a half easily to get to the airport. And I'm not condoning speeding or anything like that, but they made it in a pretty good time.
Nice.
And so I was there waiting at the security. They pulled in, and my wife just comes out running with her PJs and just running as fast as she could, just handing me the passport so I could go through security. And would you believe, like, my gate is not like the first gate after the security checkpoint. It's the very last one in the airport, all the way down to the right. So I've got a lot of stuff that I'm carrying, but I'm not carrying and walking. I am sprinting as fast as I possibly can. I did a lot of running at that time and thought I would be okay, but I was sprinting so fast. I got to the terminal just like praying for a long time, please, just the door to be open. And I got there. They said, I threw my passport down. Please don't close the gate. They actually got me onto the plane, and as soon as I got on the plane, they closed the door. I sat down, and I made it. So in a full-on sweat, panic, now I started to feel like the whole emotions of what would have happened if I would have left this team behind to go where we needed to go.
No kidding.
So that was a very high-stress situation, and one that I will never do again in not looking at the passport photo.
Lesson number 2.
Yes.
First lesson, make sure you got your passport.
Yeah.
Second one, make sure it's yours.
And third one, have good grandparents.
I was going to say your grandparents deserve a shout out.
Oh my goodness, yes they do.
Yes.
I owe them a lot, more than just what they did for me there, yes.
That's so stressful, Chad.
Yeah.
But I'm sure since those 2 passport fails,
Yeah.
everything else has gone perfectly fine, right?
Always. Not quite.
But nothing to do with you.
No.
No. So moving on, I want to ask you about, we travel a lot as staff, together with other staff. Do you have a good story about another staff member?
Sure. I spent a lot of time in the earlier part traveling with Dave, the executive director. And we were in Nigeria. I think it was on our second trip. And Dave's typically pretty scared of flying anyways. It's kind of a weird one. I don't think he's afraid of heights, but he's afraid of flying. I hate heights, but flying, it doesn't do anything for me.
Okay.
So we were in Nigeria, and the week prior, we had heard the same airline that we were going to be taking a domestic flight on had crashed, and everybody did not make it. So this is kind of like in the back of our minds as we're going to be using the same airline on a domestic flight.
Right. Okay.
So it comes time, and he's a bit concerned, taking this flight, and rightfully so. So we get onto it, and we head to our cruising altitude, and we're just kind of going along, and all of a sudden the plane just drops, like completely drops. Now people ask me, like, how long did it drop for? And I don't think it's probably longer than 3, 4, 5 seconds. But when you're thinking 1001, 1002, and it's just dropping, like you're thinking that's it. And so did everybody else in the plane, as it was a complete uproar. It was a full-on, it was like everybody that if they could be on their knees, which they weren't, but in their chairs, they were praying, calling out to God. Dave was like beside me, white-knuckling it, but, as he was holding so tightly to the to the armrest. And for me, I don't know, I've always had this thing, like, if I'm going to go, that's one way for me to go. It's like a bit of a rush, and you're not going to feel it, and then you're in heaven. So it doesn't matter to me so much, but
it's a fun way to go,
it's just a fun way to go.
Oh, man.
So I mean, you'll have to confirm it with Dave, but it kind of sounds weird, but I actually had like my hands up in the air, just like you're on a roller coaster. Just because I wanted to de-stress the situation while it was happening, but it wasn't helping with Dave. Yeah, it was like,
Woo!
So anyways, we have no idea what happened. The plane stopped its fall, came back to its cruising altitude. We came in and made the landing. As soon as we made the landing, it was a full-on worship service of people just hollering and
Where were
yelling.
You?
It was in Nigeria.
In Nigeria.
Still, yeah.
Okay.
So I think we were the only Canadians on that flight. So the Nigerians were just very
Just-
charismatic.
Yep.
And just raising their hands in the air, and they were just worshiping God. Thank you, Jesus, as they're going. And, you know, we're high-fiving people. We're still alive. But that tone quickly changed when we started to disembark the plane, because those little planes, the cockpit is open. So people, were thanking God for it, but then they were also in the same tongue. They were just giving it to the pilot.
No.
Yes.
Poor pilot.
So it was like this unique balance of people being so thankful and just reaming out the pilot at the same time. But we made it, and it ended up being a good story instead of a
Was
bad
it,
one.
Dave? I want to ask you, was that a good story? I don't
Yeah.
know if he would agree with you.
He
on
might
that.
have a different perspective.
Yeah. Oh, man. That's terrifying, actually.
And actually on the same trip, and I feel bad for doing this, but after we made this flight and we were going on another domestic terminal, a few weeks later, whatever it was, we arrived at the airport and he got out of the vehicle, except his passport I could see it fell in between the car seat. And so when I saw that, I didn't say anything. He went to the back and was grabbing the luggage. I went and I grabbed his passport and
You're
put it in my bag.
bad.
I know, it's terrible. It's terrible.
No.
I feel bad about it, but so anyways, he's checking for his passport after we get the luggage, right, as we're taking another domestic flight within Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And he's searching and looking for his passport, and he's like, I don't know where my passport is. I don't know where I left it. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? And I'm like, should I continue on with the trip or not continue on with the trip? And he's thinking,
You're terrible.
I'm going to have to go to the embassy to try to get a temporary passport. I'm not going to be able to fly the rest of the trip. There's 3 more weeks left in the trip. I'm like, I don't know what we're going to do. And so I let him go for a certain amount of time, which he probably felt was forever. And then I just pulled out the passport and put it into his face, and he was not too happy with me at that time, but to me it was pretty funny.
Probably headache inducing
my
for
goodness,
him.
Yes,
He's probably
and he deals with migraines. I don't think
Oh.
that was a good one for him, but yes, I did do that to him as well.
kind of funny, but
Kind of funny,
not.
but not really nice.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Dave. You took the brunt of the staff member
Yep.
story, but okay. We've had a lot of teams go, and I'm sure there could be a whole podcast just from team members sharing stories that have happened or mishaps. Can you recall a story or two where you led a team?
Yeah, I still can't. Unless I tell this story, it really doesn't even. You can't really comprehend how this works. So I was leading a team to Ukraine, and Mary had already been in Ukraine. I think she had been leading another team or whatever it was. I can't remember what it was, but we had been apart already for a month. And I showed up to the airport, and as you know, you and I know, but maybe some listeners don't, like we do a lot of prep with the team members on who's going, logistical issues. And we have a lot of team meetings, cultural orientations. And so when I showed up to the airport, there happened to be an additional person traveling on our team. And I was a little bit baffled as to where this new person just had arrived from. It's not like there was any
There's another
discussion or
fire.
anything like that. But what had happened was, what I found out a little bit later after I was trying to determine what to do, is one of the team members decided, hey, we're going to Ukraine, and this person would also like to go to Ukraine and visit with some friends that also are in the area, and just to kind of come along, with us. And so she booked a similar itinerary.
Okay, so she had booked her own flight.
She had booked her own flight.
Okay, so it wasn't like she came expecting that you would have had a flight booked for
That's
her.
right.
Okay.
So she did have her own flight.
Okay.
However, we did have a layover
Yeah.
in a place in London. So beforehand, when we leave the airport from London, we already had our British pounds to be able to pay for the hopper bus that was taking us from the airport to the hotel. But we didn't have enough for this additional person, plus the hotel reservation. We didn't have a reservation for her as part of our layover. So I had to go and find a place to be able to I had to find a place to be able to exchange currency that we had to get more British pounds, so that was good. And just praying that there was going to be a vacancy at the same hotel that we were going to be having a layover, which there was, which was fantastic. And it wasn't like technology was super great at that time. So it wasn't like I could inform, the partners what was going on, that we have a whole another additional person, because we had a bus that was picking us up in Kiev and traveling all the way down like 8 hours to our final destination. And we had it so the amount of places on that bus was filled up by all the team members in addition to the luggage.
Okay.
And so all the seat was filled. I didn't know what we were going to do. It all had depended on how much luggage was going to take on this bus that we had arrived when we arrived. So we did. We arrived into Kiev and got picked up from the bus. We loaded it all up with our things, and lo and behold, there was one spot left on the bus.
No.
Yeah.
The Lord's hand.
The Lord's hand
Oh
was
my
there.
goodness.
And then the next part of it was talking to Mary on our long journey down to the guest house, is that we had all the rooms filled with people already. And so we just made a quick switch. And again, this is part of international travel and facilitating of teams, and you have to be flexible. So my wife and I we just gave up the room that we were in and ended up going to the garage with the local partners who also were staying in the garage for the sake of room, so that the individual could have it. So
what a happy reunion.
yeah, after a month long, yes, being in the garage, yes, it was a happy reunion. But
with your brother and sister-in-law.
With my brother and sister-in-law, yes. So anyways, everything worked out good. The individual got to see the person. It was fine. It was just funny when you think about showing up to the airport and what do you do when an additional team member is on your team.
So this person, you got to be careful. They might be listening.
Yeah.
But they just showed up with a ticket and then expected just to follow the team everywhere?
Yeah, but it wasn't, I would never even put it on the person. It was the person from like the team member who was like, hey, you know what, we're going to Ukraine. Why don't you just come along with us? And so they just said, so that person did not have a huge amount of international travel experience to go and do it themselves. So why don't you just come with us?
Come along.
And it'll just kind of take care of itself, which it did.
So for those listening who don't know what goes into sending a team, every person is very much accounted for as far as every detail along the way. Like you said, we exchange money for your bus to your connecting hotel, and like every little detail is thought of ahead of time, and we count for a certain amount for meals and for accommodations and all that kind of stuff. So to throw one person in maybe doesn't sound like a big deal, but it is a logistical nightmare. And we always have insurance for our teams and everything like that. So I can imagine what you were thinking.
Yeah, got to be flexible.
Yeah. How was sleeping in the garage? Was that nice?
You know what? It was
nice
fine. The garage was a finished garage. It was totally fine. Mattresses on the floor. It's not a problem. We're used to sleeping in many different areas.
It's very true. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good story. Just a random person showing up.
That's it. Random, yeah.
I feel like you had another good one of a team. Do you?
Yeah. I do have another one of the team. Sure, if I can share this one too. This one gives me a little bit more of a headache, but it was a pretty intensive trip. I was facilitating or leading a team from two churches that had combined. They're from the same denomination, and going to India. And India's, you have to be quite careful there as you just have to be careful. And so it was a bit of an intensive trip. And so our two churches were from different areas. One was Vancouver, one was Edmonton, I believe. So as a team leader, you're on all the time. Like logistical things that change, you're the one that's having to deal with it. Like you're constantly feel like you're just on because you need to be. You're responsible for this team. So for me, like when we arrived to the airport to leave, you can finally just you can kind of rest, right? Like your brain's turned off, you're good to go. So I knew not to do that until I finally had the team leave. And so when we arrived into Frankfurt, we had half the team departing a little bit earlier than the other team. It was about 3 hours difference or something like that, the one that was going to Edmonton. So I went with the entire team there. We're all saying our goodbyes, and just went right to the escalator, which was taking them right down to the bus that was taking them onto the plane. So as soon as I saw them down the escalator, now it was like about 3 hour of wait before our flight to Vancouver. And so I left. I think I went to sleep because I was pretty tired, and came back and met the team at the terminal. Well, when I showed up to the terminal, here is one of the people from the Edmonton team.
Oh, no.
And I mean, I was just in disbelief, like, what are you even doing here? Why are you here? Why are you not on the plane? And so he explained a little bit about how when he went down the escalator, he really needed to go to the bathroom, and decided that would be a good time for him to do that, is to go to the bathroom. But the amount of time it took for him to use the facilities did not allow him to make it onto the very last bus that was going onto the plane. So lo and behold, we have a few different things going on. We have a team that is on a plane, not seeing their colleague who is in behind them, their friend from the church who's in behind them, didn't come on the plane. They're searching the plane. He's not on the plane. So, and then you have our situation where he missed his flight to Edmonton. What are we going to do? Right. So quickly, I called our office because it just happened to be the early part of the day, and I called our Teams and Project Services department and said, listen, we got to call our travel agent to get him rebooked. And what can we do logistically? Because we only had like a short time to get him rebooked on this Vancouver flight to get him to Vancouver and then potentially to Edmonton. What I didn't know at the time, which I feel so bad, is that it was his anniversary. Yeah, it was his anniversary, and his wife had a surprise getaway with him that she was going to be picking him up from the airport that she had booked to take him to. But here you have, when he had to make the phone call to his wife, and she was not happy.
Oh, no.
So, and now the pressure is just like, it's just increasing. Like, we have to try to get him to, Edmonton. We have to get him on this flight. So our Teams and Project Service Department, Angela, did an amazing job, was able to get him on the flight from Vancouver to Vancouver. But then we had the next part was there was only one flight remaining on WestJet to take him from Vancouver to Edmonton. And the connection was so tight. Like, he's going to have to leave his luggage in Vancouver and run, and hopefully he gets onto it for the sake of him, his marriage, and his wife, right? So we get him on
the trip that ruined his marriage.
The Blacken trip that almost set everything off. So we arrive into Vancouver. He's running through immigration. He runs. We actually don't even know if he makes it, onto the plane. But to make a longer story, short, he ended up making it to Edmonton only about 3 or 4 hours later than the other team. They still made it to their original, their anniversary getaway.
Oh, they did.
And so yes, that was one that I couldn't fully comprehend what I was seeing when it happened. But again, you have to be so flexible, and working with great people here, we were able to make it happen for the sake of that marriage.
Oh, that is so funny. Wow. Yeah. Don't go to the bathroom right before you got to leave.
Yeah, at least just wait till you're on the plane. Yeah.
Yeah. That's terrible. Oh, I think we have time for one more story. Do you have one more?
Yeah, I have one more.
I know you have more than one more.
There's many more, but yeah.
How about it's another Ukraine one.
It's another Ukraine one, yeah.
Let's do that one.
It is, sure. I was in Ukraine with Mary, and I think it was for a month that we were there, but we needed to go to Nigeria. This was, I think, our first time traveling to Nigeria. I was going to be meeting Dave in Frankfurt and going from there, to Nigeria. So we had also had a team scheduled to be going to Ukraine at the exact same time. So Mary, my wife, was going to be leading that team. And for myself, I was leaving to go with, Dave's Nigeria. So that's kind of how logistically it was working. And it just so happened that our itineraries matched, where I was leaving Ukraine, arriving into Frankfurt, the team was arriving into Frankfurt. And I just decided, you know what, I might as well go to their terminal just to say hi to them and wish them all the best. And so as soon as I landed in Frankfurt, I had just a short time, so I went to their terminal. It took me like 30, 40 minutes or whatever to finally get to them. And they're just about to get onto the plane, and I'm saying, oh, hi, guys, and, wishing them all the best. Yeah. But in the back of my mind, as soon as they got onto the plane, I'm thinking, I think I think they're supposed to be arriving in like 10 or 12 hours from now, not in 2 hours. Like, it doesn't take that long to go from Frankfurt to Kiev. And so we didn't have the technology again that, we have now, texting or even be able to see the itinerary on my phone. Like, it was all paper, and I was just thinking this is a pretty big issue. So I'm racing back to my terminal and just thinking through, man, we got a potential huge issue here. They're getting on the plane, they're going to Kiev, and my wife it's about 8 to 10 hours by vehicle away, because she's thinking so they were going to pick the team up at the airport, but she's 8 to 10 hours away. So now I arrive to my gate, but now I'm supposed to be meeting Dave. Well, Dave's not there. He's not at the terminal. I'm waiting for him. What do I do? Do I get on this plane? But yet I need to make this call back to Angela, who's be sleeping because it's pretty early in the morning for her, to find out, like, does the team really arrive in 2 hours or 10 hours?
Right.
And so I don't know. I'm sitting there just waiting for the last moment to get on my bus to take me to the plane. And I decided, okay, you know what? Dave's not here. I'm just going to go to Nigeria by myself. And hopefully on the plane, I can get in contact. I don't know how, but maybe I'll be able to get in contact. So I decided to get on the plane, and I talked to the stewardess going, this is the situation that I've got, and I need to use like a phone. You know those phones that are in front of you on the plane that nobody uses?
Right.
And you always like, hey, it'd be kind of cool to use that phone. Well, this was going to be my opportunity to actually use this phone.
Nice.
Yeah. So I had to wait until we took off and got to cruising altitude before you're allowed to use the phone. Yeah. So I phoned Dave's cell. But because I didn't want to pay like whatever it was, the $3 or $6 a minute, if he wasn't going to pick up and go to voicemail. So I would phone him 3-4 times, but he wouldn't pick up. But he's sleeping, I didn't know, in Toronto, because his flight got delayed because of weather.
Oh, okay.
So he was still in Toronto, wasn't able to get me a message because, again, we didn't have the technology to do so. I call Angela on the phone, and I said, Angela, get up right now, go to your computer. The team just left from Frankfurt. They're going to be arriving in like 2.5 hours to Kiev. When are they supposed to arrive? And she's like, I'm going right now to check. And I said, okay. And as soon as she got onto her computer, it just went silent. And I'm like, okay, I've been talking to the stewardesses. I've never seen this before, but the plane actually had internet.
Oh.
So you could pay for internet, which is unheard of. I've been on a lot of trips, as I said, right? Yeah. So, but this plane had Wi-Fi capabilities. So we had the old MSN Messenger. I said, okay, I'm going to hang up the phone. I'm going to go onto my computer, get onto the internet. I'm going to chat over MSN Messenger. Yeah. So we start talking and chatting. She's like, I can't believe however this mistake happened. Again, I don't know the details of it, but yeah, the team, regardless, is arriving into the capital of Ukraine so soon. And what do we do? So I said, you got to call Mary right now so she can like get going. So she does that. I'm just waiting. She gets a hold of Mary. Mary is like already in bed once again. And she gets out of bed, grabs her suitcase, grabs her brother, and off they go, just like that. To head towards the airport, but they're never going to be there in time.
Right.
So what she did, to make a long story short, because I'm trying to not miss too many of the details, but Mary called one of her friends in Kiev that was actually a translator at our wedding that's been a longtime friend of hers, and said, listen, can you bail us out here? We got a team arriving at the airport. Can you arrive to the airport, take them to the hotel, and by the time they get up in the morning, I should be there. And so Angela's messaging me like, okay, I got a hold of Mary. She's going there. We're hoping to get somebody to pick them up there. And then my internet connection went, because as soon as we entered into African airspace, we had no longer connectivity. Right. So that's as far as I knew until I landed into Nigeria what had happened, or even what happened with Dave. I didn't even still know. Right. And so Mary got a hold of this friend. He went straight to the airport. He left his job, went straight to the airport. Team got off. He pulled in. This is no joke. He pulled in, came in. He speaks English, and said, listen, I'm here to pick you guys up to take you to the hotel. And again, the team doesn't know anything about this, but whatever, that's fine. and he took him to the hotel. Mary came straight there through the night. When the team got up for breakfast, she came in going, "Hey guys, good to see you. So glad to see you." Had like breakfast with them, got onto the vehicle, and it was like nothing happened, right? But this was a
lot of gray hairs happened.
A lot of gray hairs happened. A lot of hairs lost at that one. Again, it doesn't show very good again on us, but we have made mistakes. But the ability to recover from those mistakes and learn from them for the future to limit them. But yes, that was a high stress one.
So stressful. But the team didn't know.
Didn't know. For them, it was no different. Yeah,
right.
It was no different.
Oh my goodness. And I think Angela also deserves a shout out in this.
To be able to recover from that.
Getting all those middle of the night wake up calls. And,
yeah, we are always on call and ready to go when the teams are on the field. That's for sure.
Yeah. Wow. Those are some great stories. And I know we could fill a whole nother podcast with that. And I know other staff and team members have some pretty funny stories too that we could fill a few. But what are a couple things that you now never forget to do before a trip or on a trip?
Well, before a trip for sure is going back to the passports. I will not forget to make sure my passport is in my luggage and making sure that it's my picture, in the passport. So that is what I will never forget to do in going. In coming back, it's especially when leading a team, like you don't turn off your brain until you actually, arrive back into Vancouver, because you still could have lost luggage. You could still have a whole bunch of different issues. So I've learned to, until I'm here in the vehicle heading home, is when I finally turn my brain off.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you for sharing those funny stories. It shows the lighter side of HFL and that we're just human and we make mistakes, but we learn from them, or we just do a really good job at covering them up.
Yeah, we've always come back with the same amount of people that went on the trip. So that's,
I would say that's a great track record.
I think that's a very good track record, yes.
Anyways, we want to hear from you, our audience. If you have a funny story you're willing to share from a HFL trip that you've been on, post it in the comment section of this podcast post on Facebook or Instagram, and we will randomly select a winner for a $20 Amazon gift card. How great is that? We know the stories are out there and we want to hear more. We're transparent. Just be bold, be brave, throw it out there. That's a wrap for this one. Maybe there will be a part 2 of funny stories, but thanks for tuning in and thanks for coming, Chad.
No problem. My pleasure.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to What in the World, where we seek to educate and inspire. Here at Hungry for Life, we are passionate about your group having a global impact and eradicating needless suffering. For more information, head over to our website at hungryforlife.org. And you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you may listen to podcasts. Tune in every other week for another conversation about what is happening at Hungry for Life.